Hello. Sometimes we smell a perfume and immediately say, "This smells expensive." I've always found that a strange way to describe a perfume because a smell doesn't come with a price tag. A rose has no idea how much it cost. Iris doesn't suddenly give off an air of wealth just because it's difficult and expensive to extract. And most of us can't accurately tell just by smelling a perfume how much natural material it contains or whether a particular ingredient was costly or cheap. So when we say a perfume smells expensive, what are we actually smelling? Are we judging the quality of the fragrance or imagining a particular kind of life? Do we love the perfume itself or the version of ourselves we imagine after putting it on? Someone wealthier, more polished, and a little closer to an ideal life? And that's the question I really want to explore in today's video. And of course, I'm not saying that all perfumes are equal in quality. Some fragrances really do feel beautifully made, but well-made, made with complex materials and expensive smelling are not exactly the same thing. A perfume can be beautifully composed without suggesting luxury at all. It might smell like wet soil, spice in the kitchen, or even animals, sweat, and decaying plants. Meanwhile, a perfume made with fairly inexpensive materials may still be described as luxurious if it feels smooth, clean, and restrained. So expensive isn't simply a material quality of the perfume. It's more like a set of scent codes we've learned to recognize. This is where I like to bring in the idea of conspicuous consumption. We don't always buy expensive things because they work better. Sometimes the act of buying them is also a way of displaying our wealth and social position. But perfume is different from luxury watch or a sports car. Other people may have no idea what you're wearing and they probably can't guess the price from the smell alone. So the display involved in perfume isn't always directed outward. It can also be a performance for ourselves. Even if no one else recognizes that I'm wearing like $300, $500, or even $1,000 fragrance, I know it comes from a brand with a long history. I know the story about its rare material. At that moment I spray it, I step into the story too. I may still live in the same home, take the same public transit, and deal with the same bills and the same job. But through scent, I briefly become someone else. That desire isn't difficult to understand. We all need fantasies and we all use objects to reshape our sense of who we are. Clothes, furniture, cars, and perfume can help us imagine who we might become. I don't think that kind of imagination is automatically shallow or vain. The problem begins when we present it as an objective aesthetic judgment. At that point, we may forget the value system we're quietly following. We often think taste is completely personal. I like what I like because my feelings are uniquely mine, but our ideas about what is elegant or vulgar, restrained or excessive are learned over time through culture and class. In other words, what we call luxury or sophistication isn't a truth that the nose discovers on its own. Advertising, department stores, hotels, magazines, and social media, they all teach us what luxury is supposed to look like. Then we translate those visual and lifestyle codes into smell. A black bottle may suggest minimalist luxury, a heavy cap suggests quality, a minimal packaging suggests restraint, a French name can imply rich history, while a story about costly ingredients signals rarity. Sometimes we don't smell the perfume first and then decide it seems expensive. We see the brand and the price first, and then we start searching the fragrance for evidence that it deserves them. If the exact same liquid were poured into an ordinary plastic atomizer with the name, packaging, and price removed, would it still smell quite so luxurious to us? I'm not asking that question to prove that everyone has been fooled by branding. I'm asking because smell never works in isolation. What we smell is always mixed with what we already know. The history of the brand, the design of the counter, the weight of the bottle, the salesperson's tone of voice, and the price we paid all become part of the experience. A perfume doesn't exist only in that liquid. It also exists in the ritual, the social ritual built around the bottle. This becomes more interesting if we look at it through Marx's idea of commodity fetishism. A product is made through material, labor, manufacturing, and market forces. But by the time the bottle reaches us, those concrete relationships have often disappeared from view. We no longer see who grew the flowers, who blended the concentrate, who designed the perfume, or who made the bottle. We also stop asking how much of the price comes from the material and how much comes from advertising, packaging, and brand status. In the end, the price itself becomes proof of quality. If it's expensive, it must be complex. If it comes from a luxury house, it must be sophisticated. We aren't only paying for the scent. In a sense, we're also buying the price itself. A high price creates the impression of scarcity. And that scarcity makes us feel we've gained access to an experience that isn't available to everyone. So sometimes when we say a perfume smells expensive, what we really mean is that it doesn't smell like ordinary life. There is a hierarchy hidden inside that judgment, that statement. Why are the smells of laundry detergent, gummy candy, shampoo, or car air freshener so often described as cheap? It isn't necessarily because they smell bad, it's because they are familiar and easy to access. They belong to everyday life, mass production, and a shared sensory world used by countless bodies. A perfume that wants to seem luxurious often has to distance itself from those smells. It can't feel too much like something everyone already has, because then it can't help the wearer feel distinctive. And that's why I've always been a little cautious about words like luxurious and sophisticated. They may sound like praise for a perfume, but sometimes they help us confirm our own position by looking down on the way other people live. Here, we can borrow an idea from Kant's aesthetics. Kant argued that aesthetic judgments should evolve a kind of disinterestedness. And put simply, when we decide whether something is beautiful, we shouldn't think only about what it can do for us, and we shouldn't mistake the status we gain from owning it for beauty itself. Of course, real aesthetic experience is almost never completely disinterested, right? And perfume especially sits close to the body and plays a role in social life and self-presentation. But still, Kant's reminder is useful. If I love a perfume mainly because it makes me appear wealthy, successful, or tasteful, do I really love the smell, or do I love the social image it gives me? If the brand name disappeared along with the price removed, would I still want to smell it when I was completely alone? To me, that's a much more interesting question than simply asking whether a perfume is worth the money. At the same time, I don't want to go to the opposite extreme and pretend that price, materials, and craftsmanship don't matter at all. Some perfumes really do cost more because they use better materials, take longer to formulate, or they are produced on a smaller scale. And technical refinement, complexity of material, and a fragrance's development over time are all worth noticing and discussing. But we should describe those qualities specifically. Instead of saying, this smells expensive, we could give more details. We could say that its texture is exceptionally soft, or that the materials flow into one another without obvious breaks, or it moves beautifully from brightness into shadow on my skin, or that the sweetness is handled with real care, it's not overly sweet, etc., etc. Those descriptions may not sound as powerful as luxurious, but they are more honest. They bring our attention back to the smell instead of letting the price make the judgment for us. And more importantly, beauty doesn't have to come from smoothness or perfection. Some of the perfumes that move me more are actually rough. They don't necessarily make me seem wealthier, and they don't promise to carry me into that fantasy. Instead, they make me more aware that I have a body that sweats, ages, and leaves traces behind. They don't help me escape from my life, they return me to it. If perfume only help us repeat the luxury fantasies we already know, then no matter how much it costs, the world it offers us may be surprisingly narrow. A truly interesting perfume doesn't have to make us smell as though we already belong to a certain kind of rich life. It can also unsettle the hierarchies we've taken for granted. Why should clean smell more sophisticated than dirty? Why should restraint count as better taste than intensity? Why should something rare automatically deserve more of our attention than something ordinary? So now, when I hear someone say that a perfume smells expensive, I don't immediately disagree. The feeling may be completely real. That fragrance may genuinely evoke space, order, distance, and material quality. But I want to ask one more question. Do I love the smell or the identity it has prepared for me? Am I smelling a perfume or a story about success, class, and the ideal life? Of course, we can use perfume to imagine another way of living. There is nothing shameful about fantasy, but if a fragrance is going to give me something meaningful, I hope it does more than making me feel for a moment as I've entered a more expensive world. I hope it reminds me that price can create a narrative, but it can't do the work of feeling for us. Luxury can offer an image, but it isn't automatically the same as beauty. Okay, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.